So we've reached the end of another Alliance Conquest season, and we now move into UC, and the bracket is all laid out here. Last time I was quite slow with my predictions compared to previously, so I thought I'd get this one out as quick as possible. It's 5 AM currently. I'm basically doing this the moment my eyes opened. So we have the bracket here, BDRR. First seed, there is definitely a solid top 4 that are going for the win this time. You have BDR, and then you have N3O, WXC, and WTF. Those 4 are the only ones with rosters competitive enough to actually compete at that top tier. And then below that is just everyone fighting for the best placement they can get. Something else to note with this UC bracket is the not registering. So it's not overly relevant to this video, but just as a general discussion point, I think 6 of these 16 didn't register in the 6th match of the season. So FDH didn't register, Dumb didn't register, TQL didn't register, WWW didn't register, RRH didn't register, and UTB didn't register. So that's 6 alliances there, and I think also NW1 didn't register in match 4, which I didn't even know until looking through these match histories here. So it's certainly not something where I think people should be judgmental to these alliances that didn't register, because it was obviously smart. They've secured their UC seeding for it with no risk. But just for the future health of the event, I think it's probably pretty stupid that 6 alliances can not register and not play anyone and have any risk of losing and still get into UC. I think that has to be changed for future seasons. It's been bad in the past. I think we had that one a few UCs ago where MBL didn't register in match 5 or 6 and got in. But here we have 6 alliances doing it. It should probably, in my opinion, be adjusted so if you don't register, you just get an automatic loss for -100, or maybe it just auto-registers you somehow to your most recently picked time slot, maybe. There just has to be something added to prevent it, because clearly at this point, everyone's aware of it, and everyone's willing to exploit it if their position warrants it. Obviously now with the castle fragments being added into the rewards as well, getting into UC is effectively more important than ever. So unless something changes, we're just going to see more and more and more of this, which isn't great. As other things of housekeeping before I get into these predictions, as always with my prediction videos, this will probably go quite long, because I like to be very analytical with it to cover all bases. There is a ongoing Chronicler event. I normally would not advertise these, but this does involve giving out gift packs. So I know people normally don't care about this stuff, but if you check your Chronicle boards and look through all the Chroniclers, if you look in their comment sections, there'll probably be giveaways where you have to leave certain comments for a chance of getting gift packs. So I will probably be giving out, I think, all 50 of these, which are 17.5 thousand diamonds in packs. So if you want free stuff, yeah, go ahead and check that out. The other thing is the UC rules. So with the bracket here, we have some results. So, for example, we've had a lot of the big alliances facing each other. So in round 6, for example, we had M3O dodge into 1 AM to knock WXC down, and they did get the win. We've had a lot of big matches involving WTF. They've played BDR. They've played WXC. We've had an M3O BDR match. But all of these were the standard Alliance Conquest rules. So we've had it announced that the rules for UC will be getting changed, and despite all the public outcry about them, these changes will be going through. So the most significant things taken into account here are the maximum number of participants is capped at 70, which means that attendance advantages are effectively irrelevant. So in the past, we had maybe alliances like KAC bringing in like 70 people against people running 90, 95 people. That extra 20, 25 people would now not matter, basically. And then the other very significant change, which comes from a few adjustments, is how much more key soloing is going to be to determining who wins certain matchups. So a lot of this isn't in the UC rules. The only one I've seen added is the troop limit change, which is here. So each player can bring 3 million troops. The troop limit for the playoffs is 4 million. So that's the only one I can see updated in the rules so far, plus 1 million as the troop counts you can bring in. But we also have some other adjustments. So the maximum number of reinforcements on buildings has supposedly been reduced. So when you take into account the fact that there will now be only 70 members able to use boots and speeds and throw their troops around to keep restocking buildings against solos, that makes solos better. Solos are going to be able to take buildings easier if you can only go to, say, 20 troops on a building now. Heavy soloers are going to be able to clear out hives even better now, because if you're someone like Nightmare, CCCPC, those people that like just soloing all match and have the accounts to enable it, if you're soloing with a 100% of mono T5 into like a mid to low spender filler, them going from 3 to 4 mil troops is not going to matter for them being able to defend at all. Everything is getting wiped for probably 0 losses or somewhere close to it. So pretty much every single rule that is being changed benefits soloing in some way or another. And going into the predictions themselves, you have to take that into consideration because it will probably change exactly how some of these results went in previous matchups, because the alliances that are able to solo more than others are better set up to this new rule set. Yeah, I don't know how long all of that went on, but it had to be laid out before I got into these predictions, I feel like. As we go into them, into round one, don't need to overly analyze some of these matches. Obviously, we're going to have BDR win this, Dumb will win this, HOH will win this, M3M will win this, MB will win this, WXC will win this, and WTF will win this. All of these, the roster difference is just too big to even really waste time thinking about it. The losers in these matches will just have more competitive matches down here in the losers bracket, and it is no coincidence that all of these alliances are seeded 1 through 7. The only competitive match in this first round is probably going to be NW1 versus FDH. This is, I feel like, very hard to predict because people just don't know what to expect from FDH since so much of their core leadership and account strength has left them. You had your Asterix, Ortizio, Napoleon, CT Barbarian, all those sorts going to Dep. You had Estrella come to us, who was very important for them in leadership. You had Spimmer come to us as well, which are some of their stronger mid-tier rally leads as well. We saw a decent amount in the past, but we just haven't seen FDH in a long time. They obviously play at 1 AM against people that tend to be a significant amount weaker than them, so it's very hard to judge where they're at. NW1 this time have not done the Dumb merge, so they're on their own. That is relevant because Dumb were very good for them. I did pilot for them. Dumb did the shot calling. I was honestly very impressed with the Dumb side of things. When I piloted there, I did not expect them to be as coordinated and high level as they actually ended up being. I know there was a lot of talk at the time of MB losing to NW1, and there was the Immortal Casty bug, obviously. But that merged alliance was very good as well. They almost beat us, and they did beat NBE. And I do feel like in the narrative of that, how good they actually played did get lost a bit. They were very, very strong for that mid-tier of alliances below the top ones. NW1 here will have time slot priority, being the highest seed. I would assume FDH would probably pick something like 01, 22, 07, and NW1 would be like 19, 22, 13, so it would be at 2200. Fairly neutral for both of them. I think I'm going to slightly edge NW1, but this is one of the few matches which can go either way. I just trust a bit more in NW1's coordination and being more well practiced. I would also expect NW1 to win probably every race if Cashew is playing for them. Yeah, Cashew is one of the most ridiculous races I've ever seen. So I will edge NW1 there, but it is a very slight edge. And that is definitely a 50-50 match. And obviously, if you get this one wrong in round one, it's going to screw up all the predictions from there on out. So this is potentially going to be a real bracket spoiler in terms of predictions. In the second round, we have, again, the ones which don't require much thought, which will probably be BDR, and I'd say maybe RRH. I'm not sure there are any other total guarantees in here, so it starts getting interesting now. Dumb versus HOH, I'm going to take us. They are not going to pick 1900 or 2200, which is going to make the time slot annoying, but attendance advantages are irrelevant with this 70 limit, as I've said previously, so that isn't as significant anymore. I just think we have them a bit outgunned in terms of account strength. I think we're a very high level of coordination at this point as well. Honestly, unless you really out-roster us, I'm not going to pick anyone in the game above us at this point, but I'm obviously biased there. MBE, M3O, they actually matched in round 5, and MBE made a real go of it. That's a lot closer than I think anyone could have expected. The issue for MBE is M3O are perhaps the alliance that benefits most from this new rule set. I'd say it's probably either them or WTF. But M3O's roster has a lot of willing soloers. So you have Talk, you have Meridianos, Abdi. This guy who's the BTA have max account changes his name every 2 weeks. He's gone off King Pikachu, King Rhaenyra OnlyFans, names like that in the past. And you've got Nightmare, you have Benny, you have a lot of very willing soloers who will be able to sustain it for 60 minutes. And the reason I say they might benefit the most from this is whilst other alliances like BDR or WXC have accounts competitive with this, their playstyles might not align with soloing as much. They could obviously adjust to that in UC, but Top, Nightmare, very renowned for just soloing over and over and over and over again. Meridianos started doing it. BTA guys done it forever. You don't see that as much historically, in my opinion, with accounts on that tier, like, say, Asterix or Tizio and people like that. So the pressure that's going to come from M3O solos throughout this whole UC run, I think, is going to be absolutely massive, and I'm going to pick them there. WXC versus WTF is going to be very, very close one. This is going to be the first real barn burner of the whole bracket. So they have matched in round 3, round 4, down here, and WXC just took it. I think this is the match where Dutch was raced onto one of the mines, but he didn't have Lord in, so WXC ended up kicking him through that. Probably if he sent Lord in that, WTF would have won. I would expect what happened there was he had a solo out attacking in a different synergy type with his Lord, and then he raced without speeding that back, probably. So it was a very, very easily fixed mistake, if so. I also don't think WTF's roster was full strength here. If I look through the elims, so it doesn't look like they had Peacetown or Black Bear, which again are 2 of those accounts which can just solo for 60 minutes and beat pretty much everyone. So that's something that has to be considered, is no one is unsoloable at this point in AC. And I mean that. Even CCCPC, if he's holding, say, Castley with full spears and everyone sent him spears, if you solo that as a max account with a 100% active as a mono T5 inf bleed solo, you are going to win every single time. So when you start dealing with those accounts like Peacetown and Black Bear, it's a real game changer. I mean, I'm pretty sure in this match, Athena the God soloed out General 43 on Casterly even. So soloing really is going to be so significant here. I think through that, I'm going to pick WTF. I think they'll have the racing advantage, and I just think they'll have more willing soloers who are able to pull it off as well. OBV FDH, I will go with OBV because I think they would probably be NW1 if they matched. So I'm just going to convert the logic down there as well. Again, though, like the NW1 match, this isn't one that FDH has no chance in at all. Definitely could win this, and I might just be very wrong on FDH and be underestimating them a lot. I just don't know enough about them in their current form to really have any confidence in picking them. TQL CAC is a very weird matchup. So CAC have the majority of their whales out. They have Peacetown Black Bear, King Edward, Dragon V out in WTF at the moment for UC. They do still have strong accounts. They have Lay, Die Hard, U50K, diamond mine, and they will have a stronger top end of rally lead than TQL will. The question is, I guess, mostly just activity. I mean, in our match against them, they literally did nothing. I mean, they couldn't beat us. We gifted them points, so don't get carried away with that scoreline. Yeah, they literally did nothing, and by that I mean they didn't rally anything. They soloed a couple of buildings, but they put in 90 people and just didn't do anything. If they do that against TQL, they will obviously lose. This one is honestly a very, very difficult one to pick. TQL actually has some very impressive wins throughout here, and this is not possible without quite a high tier of coordination, which KC definitely does not have. The question is just, can that second tier of KC solo take TQL out of buildings consistently? I'm just not sure without Peace Town, without Black Bear, and then below that even without someone like Dragon V, John Edward, also Dark Angel. I think this is the Sung Nam account. I'm going to go with the logic, which has been quite useful in past UC predictions, I feel like, of if in doubt, doubt KAC, because they've always been bracket busters, and I'm going to go against them here. Then the last one of this round, you have NFI, UTB. I have a lot of respect for NFI. We've played them twice this season, and it's tough for them just because we have a lot of very strong accounts, which they struggle to deal with, obviously. This leg match scares me a bit, because leg don't have Y2 in, they don't have Altera GR in, they don't have Abdi Rahman in. Admittedly, this Vias guy might be the greatest racer ever in GoTWiC, which might be a crazy statement, because I'm guessing very few people, if anyone, has even heard of him, but I've never seen someone cap buildings so fast. This scares me a bit, and UTB, their roster is a very high level. Like you see here, they're bringing 98 people. They've merged in some of Jazz's players, like Forstorm, Barlab, who, go right to the top of their elimination rankings here. And they will both be willing soloers as well, which, as I've said of the UC rules, is very important, but they don't totally outweigh or NFI at all. I will very slightly give UTB the edge, but this is again another matchup that can go either way, in my opinion. Then we have round 3, NW1 OBV, very close. Another one that's very hard to predict. I think this one is a total 50-50 matchup, honestly. Similar to the FDH pick, I know NW1 will probably have the racing advantage, unless pilots get involved at least. The rosters are very similar strength. I think NW1 will have a higher top end with likes of CCKU and Sergio Red. So I'm gonna pick NW1 ever so slightly. Again, I don't have much confidence in this pick either way. There are a fair few 50-50s throughout this bracket, and I think getting 30 out of 30 is going to be very, very tricky, to be honest, for anyone. Past that in round 3, though, we have some easy ones. Dumb, MBE, WXC. Their rosters are too strong for TQL, RRH, and UTB to compete with, so I think those 3 will go out there. Then we move into the top 8 already. So BDR will obviously batter us. We probably won't even try because it's not worth using speeds there. We're also in the winners bracket, so we can afford to drop down. Here, MBE will definitely try since it's a do or die match here. But I think WXC will just be too strong with the top end accounts to really make it possible for them to hold on long enough. Then these two are very interesting matchups. NW1 Dumb, we saw obviously their merges for in previous events, like last UC. I think this is very heavily in Dumb's favor, in my opinion. I think their coordination is better, and their top end accounts, very willing soloers. So Draw is actually an MBE for UC, but you have Eva was soloing like crazy last UC. But I think particularly the Savo account and Vendetti, who are not in these elimination rankings for some reason. Not entirely sure where they are hiding. I think they're called Banana and Strawberry right now are their names, making them very difficult to find and probably unnecessary. Yeah, so this is the Savo account, the Hail to the King one, which is near enough max cav, and then Vendetti too. Both of these will probably have solo or match as long as they're not in buildings, and I'm not sure NW1 have any spear leads to really defend against that. because Sergio Red is Cav, CCKU is Enf. CCKU can flex the spear, I guess. I think everything slightly edges dumb in that matchup, and that's why I'll pick them there. Enfrio WTF, very, very close. I've said previously about why this rule set is very good for Enfrio, but on the same note, it's obviously perfect for WTF as well. So after All Out War, Dep disbanded and split somewhat. You had half of them go into WXC, including the FDH side, but also other parts of leadership like Essie. And then you have what I'd probably describe as the Twix Dudu Darius clique side. I think intend to quit and sell, but then when emotions calmed down after they were mad at all the bugs and whatnot, and obviously that just didn't go well for them generally. That was pretty much everything went wrong. I mean, they decided to keep playing, so Dep disbanding, generally, it was basically pointless, in my opinion, because they're effectively all still playing. I think a lot of them in here are in the process of moving away from the game. When you talk about soloing, Dutch, Pearl, Peacetown, Eris, which is the Helbium account, Black Bear, you have others at very high tier. You've got Athena the God, you got the Queenie account, which was, God, what was that? Beelzebub and Jokers for a time. It's a max account for a very, very long time. A lot of these can solo at very high level. Menat too, I missed him. Their roster is obviously ridiculous, and you also have the fact that they're going to race max accounts onto buildings. I will edge WTF. I think their coordination is in a fairly similar spot. I think WTF have a higher top end through their roster, and we haven't properly seen it in their losses through the regular season because of, for example, Black Bear and Peacetown not being in the roster in this match. I don't think any match except match 6, which was a walkover, has actually had both Peacetown and Black Bear in it at any point. And they also added a few more in that last day as well, like Lord Orval, so they bulked their rally list up even more so. And as you reduce the maximum participant limit, obviously those top-end accounts are going to be able to carry more and more than they would have been with the existing rule set. Enfrio definitely can make a really good game of it, though, and I think it will be probably within 10, 20k at most, either way. And then we go into round 5, get the HOH Dumb rematch. Exactly the same as up here. I'm going to pick us. I'm not going to pick anyone against us who doesn't out-roster us, which is going to be as soon as this next round. Then Enfrio WXC. As I've said before, I think this soloing meta fits Enfrio's current roster very, very well. They have just come off beating them, and I think they've got more recruits in this last round of UC as well. They absorbed in, what was it, the BTA account, so you had the likes of this. Max County changed his name all the time, but there was also Akron, Claudia, Hoho, Han, or however he's pronounced, which bulks up their rally lead list a lot. DN for the whole season. WXC themselves have absorbed in a lot of strong accounts. Organicus joined in this last match. White to Win been in there the whole season. You obviously have the Dep, FDH Wales, like particularly Ortizio Asterix at that real top end. You have CC's 2 accounts. But I think Enfrio bulked up a little bit more. And a big issue for WXC is losing Red Drums accounts at the start of the season. So Bezaming and El Sicario both left. So whilst roster improvements are good, it's not as much of a net positive as it is for other alliances, because they sort of had to dig themselves out of a hole of losing a max spear and a max inf account, which is so key at this level of play. From what I heard, WXC didn't have their shot caller there for this match, and I think that's why they thought this went the way it did, which is fair enough. I do think it's not a blowout either way. It's going to be 60-40, 50-50, but I will very slightly edge Enfrio there, I think. WXC's win condition, I'd say, would probably be sticking in very high-level spear accounts into buildings, because, as I've said about Enfrio's soloing, it's very heavily spear and cav, so Tok is spears, Meridianos is spears, Holy Knight is cav, Nightmare is cav. Typically, I think you might be able to flex. I think he runs flex, bleed, and fem cav, to be fair. And especially with the troop limits, he might be able to solo more in him. But it's hard to win solos on accounts like Asterix and CC, I don't know how that goes without inf health. It's probably fine, to be honest. Yeah, I think maybe if like CC goes spears and they get CC and Asterix as spear on Castly and a port, they could build up quite a decent lead going into mines. So WXC definitely have win conditions there, and it's definitely not a blowover either way. But I'll just slightly edge M3O in that round. HOH M3O, because it's a losers bracket, we will go and give it our best shot here. You have to favourite M3O, you have to pick them. Their account strength is just way too strong at the top end for us to compete with. We will be soloed out of buildings quite consistently, probably. And I would imagine the pressure will just be a bit too much to keep up with in terms of constantly needing flows of boots and speed ups to just be drained out of our accounts over and over and over again. Then you start getting into these BDR WTF matches to what I would say decide the winner. So they've matched twice through the regular season, and BDR have won both times. I remember there was a lot of talk in the first match around the racing change. So you see here, BDR won, was that 7 races, including this Selen person winning 4 races, by the way. They are exceedingly quick, which is interesting to me. I know there's a lot of talk about this change in that first match preventing scripting because you couldn't preload the attack button, so you couldn't preload your preset formations. I felt like that was only a buff to scripting because you could just, whilst everyone else would have to click attack, then scroll to their preset, then send, you could just script like it automatically doing that. I know the thought process is that you send the races without the preset formations, but even if you're manually clicking attack confirm, that's still slower than a script just like attack and then zooming up and zooming back down. So I'm not really sure there's any merit in that at all. I do definitely feel like BDR's racing has gone up a tier this season. I don't know who was playing that Selen account, but they were winning a lot of races consistently through the season. How many did they win in the WTF rematch? Just one, to be fair. Maybe they just had a really good first match, and I'm overblowing it, actually. Okay, no, they won Outpost Port Castly versus M3O, and then they probably hit them on mines as well. So if they've gone up a tier in racing, that bridges the gap a bit compared to how it was previously with depth. The roster isn't depth, particularly compared to the competition. And I think BDR have retained their roster more so than getting UC recruits compared to some of these other alliances in the top 4. They did gain Sicario and Bezaming through Red Drum, as I said previously. I believe that's just permanent at this point, rather than UC recruits. But BDR at the top end, I think objectively are outweighed, which I mean as a compliment, honestly, because the fact you beat WTF twice in a row despite that is very impressive. And I feel like in terms of systems, organization, probably shot calling in the moment, BDR are likely number 1 in all of those things. But WTF then have the racing in their favor, and they've also got the soloing in their favor because of accounts like Peace Down Black Bear, which I think suit the UC rule set just a bit more. So I'm gonna pick WTF, even though they've lost twice in a row. It is another case of it's gonna be another 10k difference match. A lot of it's just gonna come down to who adjusts to these new rule sets the best. There are also other, like I think it blocks you now from sending reinforcements when a building is 30 out of 30. It says like Great City has exceeded capacity. I don't know if that's intentional, but it is in the game currently, which, whilst there are workarounds to that, probably means that there are going to be more changes of buildings just because it makes reinforcing harder. And if buildings change faster, that's a negative for WTF because their strategy will be so fixated on racing the max counts into buildings and holding them. If it becomes buildings trading back and forth, that is in BDR's best interest, in my opinion. I think both these matches, good spoiler, I'm going to pick BDR there, and this will be, again, the UC Finals. I think both of these matches will be very, very fun viewing, to the point where it would actually be worth spectating UC for neutrals, because really anything can happen. And I think both alliances probably expect to win and probably think they should win, which is a very interesting scenario because previously it was just Dep was way stronger than everyone, they raced way better than everyone, they just battered everybody and nothing mattered. Now it is a much more interesting landscape, and whilst I am picking what is somewhat Dep 2.0, which I will do again in the final, both of these could go either way, and if BDR end up winning, really wouldn't surprise me at all. I would probably expect a lot of drama, no matter what happens either way. I'd expect a lot of rubbing it in the other's face, no matter what happens either way. But yeah, my reasoning is the racing difference for WTF and the soloing being better and more suited for the UC rule set. That is going to be why I'm going to pick WTF to win it all. And yeah, that is going to be my UC predictions. I'm going to confirm it now, and there may well be things that I change my mind on, and I regret pressing confirm, but I think that is what I'm going to go with. So all in all, it's a pretty interesting UC, actually. There's a lot of decent matches in these earlier rounds. There's a lot of coin flips. Top 4 is very competitive. Like, I have WXC going out here in round 5. If WXC won UC, I don't think it would shock anyone. Like, they definitely can, M3O definitely can, BDR definitely can, WTF definitely can. No one below that can, but those 4, if they string together some very good results, if they adapt to these new rule sets and create systems that suit these rule sets very quickly, and yeah, anyone can take this season of UC, and it should be a very fun watch. If my predictions end up being good and I get some of the coin flip matches right, I do fully expect you, if we get to round 6 here, to spend at least 1 million diamonds on me for the charm rankings, because that is clearly a fair trade. And yeah, if you're watching this at the time of posting, happy Christmas, happy holidays, stay safe, and yeah, thanks to everyone who's watched and supported all my videos that I've put out in this past year since coming back to being a Chronicler.